is to say, you know, the Brutes could be a win condition in their own right, absolutely, if they come down early and there's no removal. But if we assume there's some way that he can get through them with Soul Rends, a very cheap deck because of the Mithril Rods, then I wonder how the interplay of deleting cards in deck will come in. Because while there is Lion's Frenzy and no weapon removal, there's double Altar of Fire. So I wonder if there'll actually be enough ammunition for the Lion's Frenzy to even get there from Glory. It's a weird matchup where your defense isn't actually like healing and armor per se, it's just destroying their deck, which equals damage.
I'd be inclined to say that I'd rather be the classic handlock versus Brute Demon Hunter, so you have some way of fighting back in that window between you've cleared their brutes and now they're trying to draw their deck to get a giant Lion's Frenzy going. This deck from GivePLZ doesn't quite have the ability to counter push on pressure. The damage comes pretty much purely from finishing your quest and getting Tamsin Blightborn down. But I will say it probably can clear brutes a bit more consistently because they're running Hysteria, which is a one of clear against two brutes, right? If it's two brutes on board, just Soul Rend can't get that done, but Hysteria does it very, very nicely. I would be curious to see as well how GivePLZ navigates towards the end game, because without a Lion's Frenzy, it does feel, without a Rustrot Viper, it does feel like he has to find a way to scam Glory out of actually getting a Lion's Frenzy down.
Well, we shall see. First of all, obviously, the game plan always starts the same as Brute Demon Hunter. You try and complete your quests as quickly as possible, especially against Handlock or any control-ish slow deck. Against the aggro decks, you can obviously focus more so on Brutes rather than just quest completion. But here, getting that done as soon as possible, as is possible on turn 3 and turn 4, thanks to the Glide as well. It's looking like a very strong start for Glory.
Glide also becomes very interesting in a deck that plays Rune Mithril Rod, right? Because a lot of the time they'll want to keep drawing, get their hand as cheap as possible so they can go for a big swing turn against brutes. But if you're too greedy, hold on to too many resources, the Glide could shuffle them all back and get rid of the discounts. But for Glory right now, he has access to, if he wants, double Spirit Jailers, but I feel like that philosophy gets a lot better to find brutes. If the philosophy were the only card he needed to keep the acrobatics draw going, then I'd consider it. But because he doesn't have the mana to spend on Spectral Sight as well, I think this is just a Spirit Jailer turn.
I grow impatient.
Yeah, I agree. We can obviously consider the benefit of having more soul fragments in your deck in order to keep drawing. So you could potentially go Glide and 0 mana Brute on the same turn. I would argue that's not worth it, but Glory clearly disagrees.
So the play of Philosophy Spirit Jailer, especially with the buff, is often very strong against aggressive decks because a lot of the time they don't even give you the time to get your brutes down. I feel like this is the opposite of that though. This matchup, GivePLZ is not even running Flesh Giants or Baron Scavengers. He is really just trying to get Turbo Draw going. So I wonder if Glory is maybe just trying to keep his hand as narrow as possible as opposed to trying to pressure down, because you shouldn't expect these two Spirit Jailers to get much done. It could be that he just wants as few cards going back in from Glide as possible.
Yeah, and to be fair to GivePLZ, he is setting up for Glide as well as he can. Like the coin tap, the coin tour guide as well. He's making sure he has a 0 mana tap available for next turn so that he can hopefully spend his mana on Backfire. I don't know, something a little bit more proactive at least.
Good time to highlight the Immolation aura that Glory has in hand. Not every Brute Demon Hunter is running this. In fact, it took a very long time for people to realize in the first place, we need some removal in this deck. Otherwise, we just fold up and die versus aggro. So it started with Soul Shears, but now I think a lot of the APAC players have moved on to 1 or 2 copies of Immolation aura, which I do believe improves the matchup versus the likes of Garrote Rogue in particular.
So GivePLZ now in that very awkward spot you end up in as Handlock against Brute Demon Hunter, where they glide and your deck has a million cards in it. So the Bristlebacks are a very long ways off. The difference though is of course that he doesn't have Baron Scavenger, he doesn't have a Netheron. But is it somehow worse in a way because his entire win condition revolves around getting to the bottom of his deck? And at the moment that is such a long way off.
I mean, it definitely feels like it, right? It depends on how long he feels he has before Lion's Frenzy. I'm just kind of assuming that he will be able to get to a removal spell for the brutes if Glory hits them. But I'm really worried about whether GivePLZ's fatigue game plan can actually raise the secondary game plan from Glory. We'll see which type of threat he has to worry about first, though, because this top deck glide from Glory is pretty interesting. It's obviously not actually disrupting GivePLZ on average because he'll draw back 4 after the 4 are shuffled in. But for Glory, that's easy Kurtrus, right?
That is easy Kurtrus.
Dump the Aura as well first, and the Crimson Sigil Runner. Looks like he's going for Spectral Sight instead. The Glide can be saved for Lion's Frenzy, potentially.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Pleasure doing business.
Trade, saving the Spectral Sight as well for 1 mana. Sure, that sounds good with Kurtrus next turn.
Looks like it's even 0 mana with this Studies, although... Alright, looks like he's accepting he might not be able to outcast this Spectral Sight from the right, just having the mana banked for the leftmost Spectral Sight post Kurtrus. It is the fastest possible way to get as many cards for cheap drawn, which is huge. The fact that he has Lion's Frenzy after he's seen, or sorry, before he's seen the second Altar of Fire means that the non-brute win condition is very much alive, and GivePLZ is a long ways off from getting to his Tamsin.
He is. He's kind of getting there. Next turn, tap double Raise Dead does get him just a hero power away from Tamsin. But I mean, 2 turns is just light years away at this point, realistically, in terms of your actual chance of getting a lethal on your opponent. Glory are very possibly actually going to save the Spectral Sight as well, which, again, I think I like. You want to set up for 1 or maybe 2 turns of big Lion's Frenzy damage.
GivePLZ. Maybe not even able to fit in the tap necessarily because he's going to have to clear this Kurtrus. He's hoping to burn the Lion's Frenzy or at least some Brutes, but nothing too relevant there. I wonder if Glory can get a lethal here guaranteed. I don't know if there's enough mana, but certainly 2 swings of the Lion's Frenzy will be able to get this done.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I doubt it. I think you're setting up for guaranteed lethal next turn, but you can still draw some cards this turn, right, and deal a lot of damage with Lion's Frenzy because there's no Rustrot Viper, so you know it's 100% safe on the other side, and you can just go for the rest of the damage next turn.
Yep. Trading back the Viper, it looks like Brutes as well.
Oh yeah.
Attacking from all fronts, the weapon charged up, the Brute hitting the board. I guess the 3/3 is slightly annoying, but honestly, even if GivePLZ heals for an extra 3, not a problem for Glory. He'll be able to have enough charge on the Lion's Frenzy next turn.
We're just going. I think Glory's picture might even have frozen. He's moving so fast the camera cannot even pick it up with the measly number of frames per second it has. And he doesn't get the lethal, but he's got the next best thing, because I think it might have even been both Soul Rens burned for GivePLZ, so he doesn't even have the possibility to clear this effectively at all. I'm not really seeing any way back in.
Yeah, me neither. If GivePLZ has been keeping track, he should know that both the glides are gone, which does, you know, from his perspective, sometimes limit the amount of card draw Glory can get. But the fact is, he still has this Guild Trader, right? So he very likely can get to the bottom of his deck and then just trade back for any other card draw he needs.
True.
And we're at a point where at 8 mana and GivePLZ only on 7 health, that might be enough to get there. But GivePLZ access to a lot more healing as he gets back his Bristleback and a Tour Guide probably, or Armor Vendor. That's even better for this situation. All right, so he's gaining 16 this turn?
That's pretty good.
Glory's amazing pose, still not shifting, he's unfazed, but I'm not sure how much damage he can even get next turn.
Yeah, is this enough now to be able to get there? The Glavesmith obviously is nice to get a little bit of extra damage, and as you correctly said, just trading back and forth and back and forth and back and forth equals a lot of extra damage.
Yeah. He has 1 Peddler still in the deck, so he has guaranteed like trade, but obviously not enough mana to actually get to 26. And in the meantime, he has to clear these lifesteal minions, I'm pretty sure. So it feels like GivePLZ has crossed the threshold. He just needs to get rid of 2 more Brutes, it feels like.
Yeah, which is kind of easier said than done. He will have access to a Hysteria, I think is the best he's got. Tamsin would be very nice as well. But it's not premium removal options if he can't find that Hysteria. And this is a very threatening board for Glory.
Amazing. Usually once you see the Lion's Frenzy come down and they're at the bottom of their deck, you stop worrying about the brutes. You feel like you've crossed that threshold, but Glory's back on the primary game plan because he knows the Lion's Frenzy isn't going to get enough draws done. GivePLZ's going to go digging. There's Hysteria!
Ooh.
What's the best order to do this now then?
If you double trade the piggies into one of them, it doesn't give you a guaranteed clear.
It's not, but one brute will certainly die. I mean,
both brutes will certainly die. It's just that some of the other stuff might survive.
Which is fine, right? I think
so.
You should know from this point that the last two cards in Glory's deck are the Peddler and Guild Trader. So Glory can get his Lion's Frenzy to a maximum of 10 next turn, I think. And then there's this Gunnar Glavesmith that we know about. So let's say 13, I guess.
Just hoping to get lucky here. Okay, that's pretty good by not attacking with the Bristleback first, as was the kind of safer route to guarantee more minions get traded off. He knows it's enough. Glory just concedes, and GivePLZ, after I called him out towards the end of that game, I thought it was just over. He's got enough heal. The Warlock gets there.
I'm surprised. I did not think that he would be able to get there on a purely control-based game plan. He didn't even get to his Tamsin. The Altar of Fire didn't burn any specifically powerful cards.
Yeah.
But maybe just the fact that it removed 6 cards for Glory's deck to be able to draw. It's like removing 6 damage minimum from the Lion's Frenzy, right? If there were any tradable cards burned, that could have even hurt Glory's Lion's Frenzy potential even more. But GivePLZ, just knowing that all he had to do was heal because it was very unlikely for Glory to be able to deal, 25 damage from Frenzy all at once.
Right.
Very well played from GivePLZ. He kept his raised dead pool as narrow as possible as well. I would say this outcome is pretty above average because there is also a tour guide in there as well. But just great knowledge of how the game plan could actually work out for him.
Yeah, very well played. I suppose it somewhat brings into question Glory's line, because as you said, it's difficult for him to deal like 25 damage in one turn, but maybe he should have tried to move towards that, where he just goes like Kurtra's on one turn, literally just like play the Lion's Frenzy the turn after, and then you go with this massive draw shuffle turn with the Glide as well to be able to try and do that maximum damage in one turn. It's unlikely, of course, but your opponent is not putting on any pressure whatsoever. They have no ways to threaten you in the deck, and they have quite a few cards left in deck as well.
Maybe. I think that's a matchup that a lot of players, if they were even aware of the possibility of it, maybe wouldn't have had high up on a priority list, because I don't think the pure delete Warlock version is all that fashionable right now, but it may be in the coming weeks, because now we also get to see a matchup where you think that the delete Warlock is very favored versus regular old Handlock. And that's because you kind of have this balance in the classic Handlock mirror where, you know, if you're drawing about parity number of cards with your opponent, you should usually hit the same amount of threats and the same amount of removal. And it's really hard to get really far ahead unless your opponent misses one of those first removal pieces. So this delete Quest Warlock version is kind of just removing the threat package in favor of more card draw. You don't lose any of your removal. You have the Tamsin in there as well, and the Soul Rens. And so you're still technically able to get rid of all your opponent's threats, but in the meantime, their removal spells are probably not doing that much. And in that time where they have those dead cards, you can get to your Blightborn Tamsin faster, get to Fatigue faster, and try and win just because of the greater amount of card draw that you have.
That's exactly it. I tried so many different ways of winning as the Handlock versus the delete version of Warlock. I tried the standard game plan of just tapping into your big threats, deliberately curating your raised dead pool to get big threats, and then trying to get them down over and over again. That felt like it was close to working, and maybe you can eke out like a small percentage win rate where they just don't have the removal. But on average, because of the Runed Mithril Rod providing you such extremely powerful removal options because of all the mana you have available, it was just too difficult to stick a big minion on board. I tried the game plan of raise deading Tour Guides and Neophytes to have a more flexible hand where I was just turboing through my deck, tapping every turn, trying to get down an early Tamsin Blightborn. That didn't feel like it worked either, because even though you can complete the quest quicker than your opponent without too much difficulty, you don't have the payoff afterwards because they just have the extra card draw, the extra deck deletion to be able to get there. Like, even just Mana Feeder Pantharas alone just adds such a devastating extra few points of win rate to the delete version of the deck, because you just want to draw through your deck and get to fatigue.
Yeah, the fatigue damage stacks really, really quickly. And to add to all of that, I also feel like GivePLZ might potentially get more usage out of his Soul Rends than Glory will. Not that GivePLZ doesn't have minions at all, but they're the kind of minions that you don't feel good Soul Rending into because they're 1/1s, 2/3s, 1/3s, just not very threatening at all. So I wonder if Glory can maybe get a bit more of an advantage by being a bit more liberal with his Soul Rends, because take note, there is Altar of Fire for GivePLZ, which is not a straight benefit to him in the early game because it also gets Glory closer towards that 10 card mark where he can get the 1 mana Baron Scavenger. So it's a very delicate balance to pull. And for now, GivePLZ has a very strong anti-aggro opening hand, but honestly, he's just looking for backfires and of course the weapon this early on.
And even here, it's kind of an interesting play, like just playing out the Tour Guide gives Glory that opportunity to use some of his removal spells. It's one of the most annoying things about the matchup is you end up with a hand full of Drain Souls, Mortal Coils, you know, the Touch of the Nathrazins as well, but you have nothing to play on, so you can't tap, you can't play anything, you can't damage yourself. The entire game plan falls apart because your hand is just completely clogged. Whereas here, Tour Guide into Baron Scavenger, into Panthara, you're very happily going to use your removal spells on this as Glory.
Gets the Anetheron for 1 here though, which is amazing in the matchup. We saw GivePLZ deliberately hold on to Altar of Fire even though he had 2 mana extra because he doesn't want to get Glory closer to the 1-cost Baron Scavenger. So probably be waiting until around 9 cards in Glory's deck to actually rip that, or more likely GivePLZ will just use it depending on how much he has in his own deck. It's the weapon that I feel he really needs to get online sooner rather than later, because looks like Glory's not even playing Anetheron here. Amazing. I really thought that would be Anetheron plus Drain Soul.
Yeah, I guess maybe waiting until there aren't any threats on the other side at the same time, but that is definitely a little surprising.
You could have Anetheron then coin the Drain Soul, right?
Yeah.
Super interesting. Maybe we're already learning some tech to this matchup we didn't know before, but in the meantime, GivePLZ very happily progressing his own quest. The Unstable Shadow Bolts are a bit difficult to maneuver in this matchup, I think, because they're one of your best removal tools versus all these threats from Glory, but you also kind of want to use them to progress your own quest. Restaurant Viper coming down for Glory, that's another tech that he and Alutamu have, is enormous.
Yeah, it's huge. This was the one thing that I was always missing, to be fair, is whenever my opponent had Rod in this matchup, I never had the Restaurant Viper to clear it off, and it just makes it so much easier to actually stick these threats now. A couple of ways this could have been approached. Obviously, this could have been a Hysteria turn if you want to save your Unstable Shadow Blast, but I do agree that just holding on to that for when your opponent goes wide, at the very least, it makes them think about everything they're doing. If the threat of it is still there, then they can never just go, if they go too wide, they get punished. If they go too small, they get punished as well. It's just so difficult to play your threats against a deck with Hysteria.
Interesting now for Glory, because I think he only has Anetheron in the Raise Dead pool right now. So if he wants, he could trade and then touch his own Viper to get that in the pool, then res 2 things. The hand still won't be full for Anetheron, but I think with a tap it can get there. And also just having another Viper in your hand is good, because GivePLZ has another Rune Rod.
He surely do. Okay, threats coming through again. This is a nice couple of cards, as you were saying, to get. Using the Unstable Shadow Blast just to damage yourself as much as possible. Yeah, I'm on board with this as well. This is kind of what I was talking about. You're able to get through the quest nice and quickly. And to be fair, This is about as good as I've seen a start go for Glory, or for this matchup in general, for the threat-dense handlock. Like, it's looking like a very good start so far.
Definitely feels like it. Tour Guide, Mana Feeder, Panthera. However, does GivePLZ just not want to get it? Okay, there he goes. Unstable Shadow Blast rather than the Panthera here. Both players at a turbo pace here. Usually, handlock, you take time to kind of figure out your mana for the next turn. Do you need to bank the discount from Tour Guide? But it feels like GivePLZ has had many reps on this deck. He'll be able to keep getting further with the Panthera, but there's the first Flesh Giant now for Glory. 2 Goldshire Knolls available as well. He can go very high pressure this turn, but I wonder how scared of Soul Rend he is.
Yeah, it's the Soul Rend, it's the Hysteria as well, isn't it? Like, going for 1 Null plus Giant. The problem is that any other minion you can play alongside it, like the Snake or even the Bristleback, it still equals 8 attack on board with a Flesh Giant, so a single Hysteria would be able to mop up all the work you've put into it. So I am inclined to say that Giant plus Null is enough. It's still representing lethal with Battlegrounds Battlemaster next turn, technically.
Yeah, I like the idea of that. Honestly, I'd think of the idea of just Giant because you've seen 2 Unstable Shadow Blasts without Tamsin, but maybe that's playing too hard around everything, but Glory's going for that. All right. I mean, this is weaker to the Bristleback that we can see now GivePLZ has, but honestly, it's just too hard to play around everything. Just like the old Control Priest, you play too hard around Hysteria, then you play into their single target removals.
Yeah. And here for GivePLZ, you're starting to see how this matchup goes from looking okay for the handlock to looking really quite bad for the handlock. That's another Panthera. There's Mana Feeder, there's 8 cards left in deck. There's still, I believe, a Backfire and a Hand of Gul'dan available in the deck, in addition to the one in hand. Like, this is so much card draw. As soon as Tamsin Blightborn comes down, GivePLZ is going to be able to turbo through his quest and kill Glory very, very promptly.
I mean, he'll be done with the quest. He'll turbo through the deck. And I think he was just figuring out how to manage the hand space for next turn, because we don't want to tap the complete quest and then burn the Tamsin. Soul Rend for Glory is very interesting, because this is probably the biggest rend he's going to get ever, right? That's actually positive for him on board. It allows him to also just play down Scavenger for 1 mana. I think it's pretty good.
Tamsin,
about losing Tamsin, but Giant is painful.
Raise Dead. Oof.
Ooh.
Those are tough cards to lose. He still has double Backfire, though. That's really big. Holding on to those is crucial, I think, because even though he's still behind in the fatigue race, maybe these couple extra threats he still has access to can offset that. If he's able to get a few attacks face, that might be able to make up for the 3 extra cards he's behind in terms of the Hand of Gul'dan available for GivePLZ.
And if they are actually preventing GivePLZ from playing Tamsin at all this turn, that could be huge, because you know, GivePLZ needs to make hand space. He needs to weave in a tap in order to play Tamsin. And if he's doing all that, he has very little mana left to deal with this board. We could see him take a turn off with Hysteria, because that then leaves him a nice Mortal Coil target on the Baron Scavenger. True. He has seen Flesh Giant leave, and now he's seen both Raise Deads used. So in terms of actual big threats left from Glory, I think it's really the only the other Null and the other Scavenger, right?
I think you're right, yeah. And the thing is that at this point, you could go Soul Rend. Like, Soul Rend to destroy 1 minion is okay, but with Backfire and Hand of Gul'dan in the deck, I don't know if I actually want to destroy cards in my deck here. On average, are you ending up losing more cards, or you know, having more cards in your deck than you're deleting by having all those card draw options available? It's kind of close.
Very interesting line GivePLZ here, where he chooses 2 of the cheapest cards to dump. Looks like he's committing to just not Altar of Fire until he absolutely needs to. The Mortal Coil is tempting to get deeper in the deck, but he realizes he doesn't actually need to draw to get to the bottom at this point, just double Altar of Fire. So I think what he's done is get Tamsin down as a priority, and also just set up for a cleaner Soul Rend the next turn. It's actually pretty clever. It means he's going to be taking quite a bit of pain this turn, but the fact that he's found Tamsin and has 2 Drained Souls means that maybe he'll be able to offset that.
Yeah, I guess that's okay. For GivePLZ, he just needs to be wary about mana concerns, because he does want to win the game in the next, like, 3 turns, I'm going to say, with all the card draw that he still has available. And so making sure he can go like Tamsin, fit in all the Drain Souls, and then I guess Backfire is probably okay as well.
Yep. I mean, this is something you can math out from this point, because if he likes, he can just go for the Soul Rend. That's the entire deck gone.
Yeah.
Then Hero Power is already dealing 3 to Glory. And then the Backfire is going to deal 2 plus 3 plus 4, 9. So it's only 12 damage right now. However, he can get his Tamsin to go face, which is pretty big, I would say, at this point in the game. The thing is, there is a card that he doesn't necessarily want to burn, and that is the Hand of Gul'dan left in his deck, because that potentially gets him 5 plus 6 plus 7, right?
Exactly, yeah.
The other Backfire as well, same thing. So maybe he's going to not use the Soul Rend, not use the Altar of Fire or delete cards whatsoever, just heal for maximum and get there with a double Backfire turn.
Yeah, okay, so he's going with an alternate line. I was suggesting he could go for Tamsin, double Drain Soul, and fit in the Backfire, but he's going for the tap instead. You know, this is more cards drawn overall, obviously, because you only get 1 hero power per turn. But it does mean it's a little bit less mana efficient, because he does still need to fit in 2 Backfires and a Hand of Gul'dan, which takes 2 turns worth of mana minimum. I think it's fine. I think it still absolutely works. But he just needs to make sure he is getting it done in a timely fashion.
I think the math works out almost purely in GivePLZ's favor here. Just the fact that Glory hasn't even gotten his own Blightborn Tamsin here, even though GivePLZ is not getting to the bottom of his deck as fast as possible, the fact that he is making it almost guaranteed that he will end up with a Backfire in hand and the Hand of Gul'dan makes it such that when he does get to the bottom of his deck, he can kill Glory in 1 turn very likely. As for Glory now here, he certainly has to get his own Tamsin Blightborn as a priority and just pray that the Backfire is not going to get deleted, but there it is, gone and gone again. You cannot, you know, improve your odds of not burning a specific card by tapping first. The order of your deck just evens out that way. But that's too bad for Glory there.
Yeah, if he'd had that bottom card in deck, maybe it could have just been Tamsin and then double Backfire next turn would have been enough to win the game if GivePLZ gives him that 1 extra turn. Because, for example, if GivePLZ just draws Backfire off the top, he can just go Alter, Backfire, Backfire, tap, and I think just win the game then. That's just too much card draw.
Up.
Or maybe it's just lethal anyway. Yeah, there we go.
With the Hand of Gul'dan and the Backfire. He's counted it up. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6, I think is 21. And then the Backfire damage is another 3. So 24 damage straight away. GivePLZ, he's done this before. He's been around the block.
Man, this is just looking like a really strong deck from GivePLZ. It's beating the Demon Hunter, and it was up against a pretty reasonable hand. Obviously beating the Handlock there very convincingly, despite seeing a Netheron at the start, Flesh Giant coming down. It was not an incredible game from Glory. He didn't get the Raised Dead Giants, the Raised Deads, a million and Netherons or whatever, but he had a reasonable hand, you know. He was putting on pressure, and yet still, it didn't really even feel like it came that close to killing GivePLZ. He allowed himself to be hit for 22 and still handsomely won the game.
That's really clever from GivePLZ. And the fact that he did this whole game without any rod discounts and without even seeing the second Backfire is amazing. He just did the math quick enough to know that in advance, if Glory did not heal above 24, he had lethal. And if Glory did heal above 24, GivePLZ just takes a turn to maybe Soul Rend that board and then get the guaranteed 24 plus 7 the turn after, 31 the turn after, because Glory simply did not have enough card draw effects to do the same amount of burst, even with his own Tamsin played. Very nicely played, and now Glory only has 1 chance to sweep GivePLZ's lineup, and it has to be with Shadow Priest, which is a very iffy deck against, I would say, the delete lock from GivePLZ, just because not only does it have all the regular removal you see from Handlock, it also has Armor Vendors and Mana Feeder Penflaras, which are pretty relevant on board versus Shadow Priest.
Yeah, I think the big thing that you're missing when you're comparing this version of the deck to regular Handlock is the Baron Scavengers. The other big threats I don't care about so much because, you know, you're rarely going to have 10 cards in hand for a Netheron or the Gnolls. The Flesh Giants at 10 mana are a little bit too slow. But the fact that you could just play a 6/6 taunt for 1 mana just feels like it locks out Shadow Priest. The piggies, the bristlebacks, can still do a similar job, but it's not quite so hard of an insta-end the game. And so I'll be curious to see how this version does stack up. But at the end of the day, I do agree with you. I think it's still going to be a good matchup for GivePLZ.
It's like yesterday, there wasn't an immediate lethal, even though it was a...
Right.
Well, Bank Yugi had the ability to take it on board, which that opportunity probably doesn't exist with this version of Warlock. But you can get the other lethal, which is just removing all their threats and healing out of range, which I think this deck is still perfectly capable of doing. Now for GivePLZ, the first Crossroads has been entered. Does he ever coin the weapon? It does kind of wreck his curve in terms of card draw because he doesn't have Backfire or Tour Guide, so it looks like he's just going for the tap.
Okay, this hand for Glory is kind of starting to come together. He needs to think about how he wants to go for this now, because his first instinct was quite obviously go for Neophyte, because that does disallow Soul Rend on the following turn. But now he seems to be going for Kulturan Chaplain now that he's seen the Gandling, but I'm not entirely sure why. I still feel like the Neophyte was maybe a good way to just stick some pressure on the board.
I think maybe Glory's just trying to bait GivePLZ into going for a Soul Rend here, because Glory wants Imp in the Raised Dead pool, which actually allows him to get, you know, 2 out of 3 times a relevant Gandling right away. I mean, 2 out of 3 on the first Raised Dead. He has 2. It's very likely he hits a Desk Imp here.
That's 1.
Uh-huh.
You order it this way, very clever, so you have a higher chance on the second one.
Yeah, love to see it.
There we go.
Yeah, I'd say this is probably the average outcome for Glory here. 2 Desk Imps, especially with this order. GivePLZ has the second Soul Rend, but it would leave the Gandling on board, so I absolutely agree. You tank the 8 this turn to set up for an actual full clear next turn, and just make sure that Gandling leaves right now.
And to be fair, even though you have Neophyte, that's kind of not even the best disruption against a second Soul Rend. Like Kulturan to get 1 up to 6, and then Orc Merchant to give another one Divine Shield. It obviously means that Soul Rend is not playable with any other additional spells, and it means that this board is actually very difficult to clear.
Yeah. What did he actually... Oh! I thought he would target a 4/4. So this is still a good Soul Rend.
It is. He was playing around the touch of the Nathrazim instead, yeah, or the, as you said, the Hysteria, but it's a lot worse against this, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very easy for us to criticize because we can see exactly what GivePLZ had in hand, but Glory was saying, you know, he just saw Soul Rend, he's not going to play around the other one, he's going to make a board that's more resilient to GivePLZ's other removal, but it was all there, everything falling apart, the Bristleback's already active, GivePLZ playing at lightning pace, and could be taking a record time sweep versus our world champion here.
How is this deck a thing? Bristleback on turn 6. He hasn't even tapped that much. It's just the Soul Rends. But Elucia off the top. Okay, if there's any way back into the game, it comes through that. You can go... yeah, Tamsin. He doesn't have any shadow cards in his own deck that synergize with it. You can't go for the double Void Shard anymore, sadly.
Yeah, this was a very low impact Elucia. A mild annoyance to GivePLZ.
Don't even worry about it. Don't even nerf her. It's fine. This is...
You take that back, Darrow. You take that back.
I take it back. I take it back. I can't even say that. I was sick a little bit in my mouth.
Yeah, I mean, I literally can't think of any way Glory has back into this game. We've seen the Gandling. We've seen both Raised Dead, so that's it.
Yeah, cards left over. I mean, it's not even like GivePLZ has dead cards left over. He's got, what, Tour Guide, Armor Vendor, another Bristleback, Drain Souls. Like, his deck is premium removal and nothing but.
Okay, but let's say all of that is at the very bottom, right? Maybe?
Sure, let's say his entire deck is at the bottom of his deck.
Never mind. Yeah, you're right. It's entirely removed. I guess Hysteria isn't that good here, so let's say that one is a bad draw. But everything else is amazing. It just doesn't get there.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, these Void Touch Attendants are like pushing a bit of damage, and he's still a little ways off from getting the quest done. Oh man, even I can't cope that hard. Like this is just completely over.
We're hoping and coping here, Derek. It's just not working. Yeah. A rough one for Glory, but honestly, even though this was a brutal series to watch, I've just been so impressed by this deck from GivePLZ.
Yeah.
He's the only one bringing it. He's shown tons of confidence and familiarity with how to play it, like instantly spotting the lethal last game, knowing all his outs this game. Just seems like he might have had a leg up on the rest of the field, which we very rarely see because it always feels like Alutamo and Glory have the best lists and the best read on the meta here in APAC.
Agreed. Yeah, like for the first time in a while, it feels like GivePLZ just had straight up 3 good matchups. I haven't seen the Brute Demon Hunter versus this version of Warlock all that much, but if the way it panned out is any kind of an indication of the average pan out, it looks massively favored for GivePLZ, who was able to just clear everything, delete the deck, heal plenty out of range. And Glory just had very little he could do in response.
Yeah, I mean, we will have to do a bit more testing, get back in the lab, I suppose, to actually get the numbers on that one, but it certainly felt like GivePLZ had a game plan from the beginning, executed it perfectly, knew that it would be hard for Glory to deal in OTK, so all he did was save enough healing versus that first charge of Alliance Frenzy, and everything from there just looked clinical. GivePLZ, no sign of the discomfort he had on some other decks last week, and you love to see it. I truly think he is a top caliber player.
Agreed. A much, much better week from him as he will be going through to the semi-finals. There it is. Glory throws it down. A 3-0 sweep. And once again, GivePLZ 3 thumbs up. And we get another one from him there on his shirt and in real life as well. Very nicely done. I think he clearly knows the deck inside and out. As you were saying, just at the end of that Warlock mirror where he just went instantly, burn all the cards, draw your deck. Job's done. You're all good.
Yep, it was 3 in total, 2 from you and 1 from me. But honestly, GivePLZ deserves a thumbs up from pretty much the whole region, even though a lot of his opponents will be pretty sad that he had just the good bring for this weekend. And especially in LHS, if there is one deck you didn't know about that turns out to have a ton of good matchups, that deck could potentially sweep everyone. I wonder if this is going to alter any of GivePLZ's opponents tomorrow's established ban strategies when they face up against him. Does this delete Warlock warrant a respect ban? Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, I still have some reservations. I think that the theory here from GivePLZ is very much right on. I have a suspicion that the version that players like Gur have brought, where you still have some of the threats, they've cut a nether on, but you have the rods and the Pantharas. I think that still gives you enough of an advantage in the mirror to the point where you're a pretty big favorite, and you can still do a lot of the things that this deck was doing in terms of the anti-aggro capabilities. But for now, at least, I don't want to rain on GivePLZ's parade, because this bring, whether or not it turns out to be the optimal list of Warlock for this metagame, has just caught everyone by surprise and is putting him in a great spot in the semi-finals, because if he goes up against Possessi, should Possessi